Hype for the third entry into the John Wick franchise has been steadily building over the past few months, and excitement is only going to grow now that the first reviews for the film are in. The minute studio Lionsgate lifted the restriction on reviews for John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, critics quickly published their thoughts on the Chad Stahelski-directed actioner. Reviews for John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum are glowing, helping prove that the John Wick movie series continues to outdo itself where other follow-up films fall flat. Joe Blow's Jimmy O gave Parabellum a perfect score, praising the film for its inventive action sequences and its heart-pounding plot, which sees our titular assassin John Wick, played by Keanu Reeves, trying to outrun those who want the $14 million bounty on his head after he killed a member of the international criminal group The High Table in John Wick Chapter 2. Jimmy O writes, "This third chapter is one of the most thrilling flicks you'll find in theaters so far this year, and somehow they've found new ways to bring men to their knees. The violence is near operatic, capping off one of the best damn trilogies ever made. It's impossible to remember the last trilogy that worked nearly as well as John Wick, aside from perhaps Lord of the Rings, which is timeless. The third film continues to build the mythology in the most satisfying of ways. It's a ferociously fast and immensely breathtaking adrenaline ride of a flick." He added that John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum is, quote, "certainly in the running for one of the best films of the year." Robert Coiter of Flickering Myth was another critic who stamped Parabellum with an impeccable 5 out of 5 stars. He said of the film, "Put it this way, if George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road was the legendary filmmaker showing youngsters how it's done, this is Chad Stahelski firing back. Much like Chapter 2, Chapter 3 leaves you begging for more. At this point, the John Wick movies are becoming a new drug, so go get your fix. Prepare for more than war. Prepare for constant, exhilarating anarchy." Chris Nashawati of Entertainment Weekly had wonderful words for Parabellum, particularly how its action sequences, which are a mainstay in the franchise, were choreographed. He also applauded actresses Halle Berry, who plays an assassin named Sophia, and Angelica Houston, who portrays the director of The High Table, for giving performances that add, quote, "a jolt of unexpected emotional weight to the movie." Nashawati made his feelings about John Wick Chapter 3 abundantly clear in the final lines of his review. "I don't mean to give the impression that John Wick 3 is anything grander than a gorgeously choreographed, gratuitously violent action movie. But as gorgeously choreographed, gratuitously violent action movies go, it's high art." Uproxx's Mike Ryan exalted Parabellum as the best film in the franchise, due in large part to how the movie expands on the series' existing world and mythology without ever feeling bogged down or less than its predecessors. Like John Wick himself, this third chapter feels like a lean, mean fighting machine. And yes, it's the best film of the franchise so far, even surpassing the first film. There are moments in John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum where I thought to myself, well, I've never seen that before. Chris Evangelista of Slash Film called Parabellum a bone-cracking, horse-kicking, dog-biting, book-smashing, axe-throwing action masterpiece, while Fresh Fiction's Courtney Howard described it as an eye-popping, jaw-dropping, show-stopping next chapter that extends the world-building beautifully, whilst assigning meaningful resonance to the character-driven action. USA Today's Brian Truitt was largely impressed with John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, calling it a solid continuation of the killer franchise that makes James Bond look about as hardcore as Peppa Pig, though he did admit that the supporting characters, like Lawrence Fishburne's Bowery King, Asia Kate Dillon's The Adjudicator, and the big bad TikTok man, played by Jason Mantzoukas, were a little underdeveloped. He also wrote that the final act was a bit messy. This third movie brings both the operatic action and intriguing exposition, though misses the greatness of Chapter 2 because of a convoluted last act and underdeveloped supporting characters. In the Wickverse, a bloody action usually leads to much more trouble later. As long as that's at the heart of the series, a pretty good Chapter 3 still equals insanely explosive, two-fisted exhilaration. Alyssa Wilkinson of Vox also brought up the point of John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum lacking some, quote, narrative intelligence, but argued that whatever the film is missing in that regard, it makes up for in style and visuals. Should the John Wick universe have a more coherent mythology? Should it come up with some kind of point it wants to make? Should it, in other words, try to become a smart series of movies at some point? No, I don't think so. Parabellum is just as satisfying as its predecessors, and not just because of the TikTok man. It is not, to be clear, a smart or wise movie, it's just a really fun one. Of course, no film is entirely perfect. Though the overwhelming majority of critics applauded for John Wick Chapter 3 so hard that their hands went numb, there was one who wasn't completely blown away. Variety critic Andrew Barker felt that Parabellum was difficult to watch in that it features so much violence and doesn't let up.
What do you need? Guns. Lots of guns.
He did, however, give kudos to director Chad Stahelski and the entire creative team for making something so visually masterful. On a level of pure craft, then, John Wick 3 is unquestionably great action filmmaking, certainly the most technically accomplished of the series thus far. But as masterfully executed as the action is, watching 2+ hours of mayhem without any palpable dramatic stakes or nuance, or any emotion at all save bloodlust, offers undeniably diminishing returns. By and large, the reviews speak for themselves. People are picking up what John Wick is putting down in Chapter 3. If the film's critical success thus far translates into big bucks at the box office, perhaps Parabellum won't end up being the end of the John Wick series. After all, according to Uproxx's Mike Ryan, Parabellum doesn't really try to play coy about a fourth movie. Decide for yourself if John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum gets your blood pumping when the film hits theaters May 17th. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about John Wick are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.